The plan called for a small group to ride across the open desert, recruiting tribes along the way. Then they would ride out of the mountains and hit the Turkish defenses where they would least expect it. It was just the sort of expedition that most appealed to Lawrence. The Arabs using their desert skills to even the odds, as reckless as it was brave. But even some of the Arabs doubted they would succeed. The struggle through the desert took its toll. 200 miles of dirt, heat, thirst, and exhaustion. On the morning of July the 6th, they stood in the mountains with Aqaba at their feet. The future of the whole revolt depended on this attack. 500 lightly armed Arabs against the heavily fortified Turkish stronghold.
Aqaba. Aqaba.
They took the Turks completely by surprise. Aqaba fell. It cost the Arabs only 2 dead. The revolt had scored its first major success. From here, it could reach across Arabia, to Syria, to Iraq. Until now, British headquarters had viewed the revolt as a skirmish, a sideshow. The Aqaba victory changed that view. Lawrence and the Arabs would become a crucial part of the war in the desert. Leaving Auda in charge at Aqaba, Lawrence insisted on reporting his own victory. The news could not have reached the Allied command at a better time. The Allies had just suffered tremendous defeats with heavy losses. Generals were being replaced, and British officers fighting with the Arabs had been questioning whether they could be led to any useful purpose. October 1917. Lawrence and the Arab army were concentrating their guerrilla attacks on the Hejaz railway, disrupting the Turkish supply routes. A year earlier, the Arabs had been a poorly led and badly equipped force. Now, they were winning significant victories and inflicting serious damage on the Turkish military machine. 4 months earlier, the Arabs had seized the strategically vital port of Aqaba. Supplies now flowed freely to Allied and Arab armies. The victory had forced British commanders to take Lawrence and the Arab army seriously. They were no longer an unpredictable sideshow, but an important part of the overall campaign. The Allies were preparing a new offensive that would move north along the coast of Palestine towards Jerusalem. The Arabs would take a parallel route, forcing the Turks to fight on 2 fronts. After Jerusalem, the goal was Damascus, the Arab political heart. The Arab army moved north, ambushing trains and raiding Turkish outposts.
On November the 11th, a detachment of the Northern Army of Sharif Faisal attacked the railway and troop train.
At Tel El Shabab, 2 locomotives destroyed. Turkish casualties 100. Arab casualties 7 men.
The Turks had put a price on the heads of Lawrence, Auda and Faisal. With every successful attack, it rose. It was the sort of recognition that delighted Lawrence. Better, he said, than a medal or a knighthood from the king. The Arab forces launched themselves into a new phase of the offensive, picking out important strategic targets. Now British forces moved towards Jerusalem. Ahead of the advance, the Turks abandoned the holy city. Jerusalem fell. With Jerusalem captured, the push towards Damascus gathered momentum. The British-led Allied forces headed in from the west. The Arabs hurried up the eastern flank. As the combined forces of the Allied and Arab armies neared Damascus, the Turks realized they were beaten and fled. Damascus was liberated. Emir Faisal was driven into the city as a conqueror.
Faisal had become the new national hero, and people believed that this person was their liberator.
There would be arguments about which troops entered the city first, British, Australian or Arab. But it was the Arab flag given to them by the British government which flew over the city hall. The race to Damascus had been won.